You plant it once, and it feeds you for the next 30 years. No replanting, no reseeding, no grocery store. Sounds impossible, right? But right now, in backyards across the world, people are harvesting vegetables from plants they put in the ground decades ago. The same plant, still producing, and nobody told you this was possible. It's called a perennial vegetable. Unlike the annuals you've been taught to grow, tomatoes, lettuce, beans, these plants don't die after one season. They come back, year after year, stronger each time. Asparagus, rhubarb, Jerusalem artichokes, perennial kale, walking onions. Some of these plants cost less than $1 to start. And once they're in the ground, they're permanent food. No replanting, no starting over. Just harvest and let them regrow. This isn't New Age gardening. This is ancient knowledge. The Incas built entire food systems around perennial crops like oca and uluco. They fed millions without annual planting cycles. In medieval Europe, peasants relied on perennial leeks and sorrel to survive famines. Even today, indigenous communities in the Amazon, the Andes, and Central Asia use perennial vegetables as their backbone crops. Why? Because they're resilient, drought-tolerant, low maintenance. Modern permaculture experts like Jeff Lawton and Sepp Holzer have spent decades proving these plants outperform annuals in almost every metric: calories per acre, labor cost, water use. This isn't theory, it's proven. So why doesn't everyone know about it? Because perennial vegetables don't make money. Think about it. If you plant something once and it feeds you forever, you're not buying seeds every spring. You're not dependent on the system. The seed industry is worth billions. Fertilizer companies, pesticide manufacturers, industrial farms, they all profit from you replanting every single year. Annuals keep you coming back. Perennials make you independent. And that's exactly why this knowledge was quietly phased out. In the early 1900s, agricultural schools shifted focus to high-yield annuals that required chemical inputs. Perennials were labeled old-fashioned or inefficient. But inefficient for who? Not for you, for them. Because once you plant a perennial, you stop being a customer. You've seen these plants your entire life. Asparagus at the farmer's market, that's a perennial. Someone planted it once, maybe 20 years ago, and it's still producing. Rhubarb in your grandma's garden, she probably planted that when your mom was a kid. You've walked past perennial vegetables in parks, wild fields, even cracks in sidewalks. Wild garlic, dandelion greens, daylily tubers. They're everywhere. You just didn't know they were food. Here's how it works. Annual plants put all their energy into one big push: grow fast, fruit hard, die. Perennials play the long game. They develop deep root systems, store energy underground, go dormant in winter, then come back stronger in spring. Every year, the plant gets bigger, the roots spread, the yield increases. A first-year asparagus plant might give you a handful of spears. By year 5, you're harvesting pounds. And it keeps going. Some asparagus beds are 50 years old and still producing. The plant becomes a permanent infrastructure for your food system. You're not growing vegetables anymore. You're installing a food forest. So how do you actually do this? Let's walk through it. Step 1. Choose your perennial. Start simple. Asparagus, rhubarb, or perennial kale are beginner-friendly. If you want something more adventurous, try walking onions, Jerusalem artichokes, Turkish rocket, sea kale. You can find crowns or root divisions online for $1 to $5 each. Some, like walking onions, you can get for free from gardening groups. Step 2. Prep your soil once. Perennials need good soil because they're staying put. Dig deep, add compost, mix in some sand if your soil's heavy clay. This is a one-time investment. You won't touch this bed again for decades. Step 3. Plant with space. Perennials get big. Asparagus crowns spread into massive root networks. Jerusalem artichokes can grow 8 feet tall. Space them twice as far apart as you think you need to. Step 4. Mulch heavily.
Drop a thick layer of wood chips, straw, or leaves around the base. This keeps weeds down, holds moisture, and feeds the soil as it breaks down. You're mimicking a forest floor. No tilling, no digging. Just let the mulch decompose and rebuild itself. Step 5. Wait. This is the hard part. Most perennials need a year or two to establish before you harvest heavily. But after that, they explode. And once they're established, you do almost nothing. Water in extreme drought, cut back dead growth in fall. That's it. Here's what most people get wrong. Mistake number 1, harvesting too early. You get excited. You see green shoots. You cut everything. Bad move. First-year perennials need to build roots. Let them grow. Harvest lightly. By year 3, you can go wild. Mistake number 2, planting annuals nearby. Perennials hate being disturbed. If you're tilling around them every spring to plant tomatoes, you're damaging their root systems. Give them their own bed. Leave it alone. Mistake number 3, ignoring invasiveness. Some perennials, like Jerusalem artichokes or horseradish, spread aggressively. Plant them in containers or bordered beds, or they'll take over your yard. Which, honestly, isn't the worst problem, but plan accordingly. So what does this actually look like in practice? Let's say you plant 1 asparagus crown this spring. Year 1, a few thin spears. You harvest nothing. Year 2, a dozen spears. You're harvesting every other day in spring, maybe 1 meal's worth. Year 3, 50 spears. You're eating asparagus for 6 weeks straight, freezing extras, giving it to neighbors. And that's from 1 plant. Now imagine a 10-foot row of asparagus or a 20-foot bed. You're producing pounds of food every spring forever from a $10 initial investment. And here's where it gets insane. Perennials can be layered. Plant asparagus in the ground, add perennial kale between the rows, edge the bed with walking onions, drop in some Turkish rocket for shade. You've just built a stacked food system, multiple harvests, different seasons, all perennial. Permaculture designers call this a food forest, but you can do it in a 4x8 raised bed. But are perennials even nutritious? Yes, in fact, many are more nutritious than annuals. Perennial kale has higher calcium than regular kale. Jerusalem artichokes are loaded with prebiotic fiber. Sea kale was prized by sailors for preventing scurvy. What if I move? Take divisions with you. Most perennials can be split and transplanted, or leave them as a gift. The next person will thank you. Will they really last 30 years? Some last longer. There are asparagus beds in Europe over a century old, rhubarb plants passed down through generations. These plants outlive you. Our ancestors understood this. Before industrial agriculture, before monoculture, before seed catalogs, people grew food that stayed. The Three Sisters method, corn, beans, squash, included groundnuts and Jerusalem artichokes as perennial anchors. Celtic tribes cultivated perennial leeks and sea kale along coastlines. In China, perennial tree collards and Chinese artichokes fed villages for generations. These weren't just crops, they were living infrastructure. And when colonial powers and industrial agriculture took over, that knowledge was erased. Not because it didn't work, because it worked too well. A self-sufficient population is hard to control, hard to tax, hard to sell to. So they buried it. Here's what this really represents. Every spring, millions of people go to garden centers, buy seeds and plants, dig up their soil, and start over. It's exhausting, expensive, and completely unnecessary. We've been conditioned to believe that food production is supposed to be hard, supposed to require constant input. But perennials prove that's a lie. Nature doesn't replant forests every year. Ecosystems sustain themselves, and you can too. When you plant a perennial, you're not just growing food, you're reclaiming autonomy. You're saying, I don't need your system, I'll build my own. And that single act, planting something that feeds you forever, is more revolutionary than people realize. If this changed the way you see gardening, if it made you question what else you've been told is impossible, then share this. Not because I'm asking, but because someone in your life needs to hear it. The people who kept this knowledge alive did it by passing it on. And now it's your turn. Plant something permanent, grow something that lasts, and watch what happens when you stop starting over. They buried the knowledge. You just dug it up.